Thank you. So in terms of sophomore year goals, what are some goals to keep in mind for your student for this important year? And so one of them is to really study hard and do well in school. Um, with that said, right, freshman year was a year where they kind of learned that transition from middle school to high school. And so continuing to anchor down in those good study habits and skills. Something to keep in mind is that if your student is interested in UCs and CSUs, that GPA starts being counted this year, right? Not to say that they won't look at ninth grade year, they will. But in terms of the GPA that will be reported, it's the 10th through 12th GPA. So this is the year that it will start. In addition to that, getting involved in extracurricular activities, right? Especially again, if they're thinking before your school applying down the road, it's always good to make sure that it's a consistent involvement from all the years in high schools, not just junior or senior year. Volunteering in the community, not just for the college transcript, right, or the college application, but really to just get to know who they are better, maybe understand what kind of career they might want to go into. That is also a reason to do so. Starting that post-secondary research, what are some of the potential areas that your student might want to get involved in, either maybe a major, or again, maybe not a four-year school, maybe they're thinking, I don't want that, maybe I want to explore trade schools. Starting that exploration early, starting that resume early. We do not keep track of like volunteer hours. Our school doesn't require that. And so if your student is doing that, it'd be good for them to keep track of it. We will talk about Naviance later on, and that would be a really good tool to use to keep track of your resume. And getting to know teachers and school counselors, right? Getting to really cultivate those relationships with teachers, because maybe down the road they will be asking for a letter of rec, but really also because if they need help, they will have somebody to reach out to when it comes to academics. And getting to know us, their school counselor. Each of us has a little bit under 500 students in our caseload. And so if a student doesn't really make that, take that opportunity to come in, say hello, or ask us questions, it's hard for us to get to know a student. And we also sometimes have to write them letters of rec as seniors. And so when it comes to that, right, if we haven't really known them, we rely on certain documents we have them fill out. So it's good if they actually, on their own accord, come in and get to know us and ask us different things. The other piece is to elaborate a little bit more on doing well in school. We created a website, and this is really found in the academic counseling section of our website. It's called the Student Success Resource Site. And so if you look at the little wheel, it really covers all these executive function skills, meaning things like time management, self-motivation, study skills, test-taking strategies, being organized, right? All of these things that are not just good for being a good student in school, but just for being a good, not just a good person, but in terms of a career, right? These are skills that they'll use in the job setting. And so cultivating that really early, making sure they're on top of those things. All those things can stand alone on the website. They can explore the different tips. There's apps. There's a lot of different documents also that can help them started on some of these tools. But we always recommend that if they have any questions, to really tap into their specific counselor, so that we can guide them through some of those tools and resources, because it will make it a little bit easier, right? That's also how we can get to know them, is if they come to us to help them on these skills, which we love to do. And so really recommend that your student explore that student success resource site. Again, this is found in the counseling site. We will at the end have those links for you so you can see where those are. And it's pretty much a site where you'll find all the counseling resources. This recording, this PowerPoint tonight will be found there as well.
Okay, so I'm going to be walking you through our graduation requirements. So we go over this with all of our students when we meet with them individually. And so just to remind all of you as parents, they do need to complete 220 credits to receive their high school diploma from Campbell. So all of our students will take, for history, it's going to be 2 years, and then they will do English is 4 years. So they will take that course every single year. Mathematics you see is 3 years, but our expectation at Branham is that the students really do take 4 years of math. And on the next slide that we'll go through, I'll kind of explain why. But we do recommend that your students take a math course every single year. For lab sciences, they're going to need to do 3, and they are specific. They have to do a year of biology, a year of chemistry, and a year of physics. They can take other science courses after that, and those would count as either a college preparatory elective or a general elective. But in order to meet the lab science requirement for Campbell, they do have to complete those 3 specific science courses. For language other than English, or what we call LOTE, they do need to complete 2 years of that. It does need to be in the same language. So a student cannot do Spanish 1 and French 1 and have that count as their 2 years. They do have to do Spanish 1 and then continue into Spanish 2. For the visual and performing arts, they will do 1 year of that. Probably most of your students took that course last year as a freshman, or they were completing their career technical education, which is also a year. If students don't want to do a career technical education course, they can always do a second year of a visual and performing art class. They will also need to do 1 year of a college preparatory elective. That again can be, so if a student does an extra year of math, so a 4th year of math or a 3rd year of language, or an extra year of science, any of those can count, as well as we have other senior kind of electives that also count in that category. They'll need to do 2 years of PE, and then they will also need to do a year of, well, really it's a semester of government and then a semester of economics, but it would be their history course for their senior year. And then it would just be 2 general electives at the end, and that's typically completed in their senior year. These are the A through G requirements. So these are what our CSU and UC system here in California will use to determine whether or not if students are eligible to apply to go straight to one of their colleges and universities. Our graduation requirements are very similar to the A through G requirements. So as long as they are completing our graduation requirements with C's or better, then they are most likely then going to be eligible with the A through G requirements. Again, D's do not count for college. They do count if your student is trying to graduate from high school, but if they're wanting to apply straight to one of those colleges, they would need to get C's and above. So the ones that I always like to point out is the mathematics. So again, it says 3 years, which is what we require at Branham, but they really want to see a 4th year of a higher level math class. So that could be pre-calculus, AP Calc, AP Stats, statistics. Any of those would be considered that 4th year. So it's really important that they do consider taking that, especially in their senior year. Laboratory science is 2 years is required by our college system. We actually require them to do 3, so they will meet that recommended amount on their own. The last one is that language other than English is showing as 2 years is required. Our college system is actually recommending that they do that 3rd year. So as your students should be taking that 2nd level now as sophomores, they can see how this year goes and then make that decision when we meet with the students in the springtime to decide if they want to take that 3rd year or not. But again, it is recommended by our 4-year college system. Other pieces that they will be looking at, we get a lot of questions on the SAT and ACT at this point for our private and out-of-state campuses. We do not know yet what will happen for sophomores. So as we get that information, come to our, parent nights each year, and we'll have more information as things, develop with the pandemic. And then just again, the minimum requirement for our CSU system is a 2.0, and the minimum for our UC system is a 3.0. Again, those are the minimum. Your student does want to have more than that, but if they have that, then they are eligible as long as they have met the subject requirement and the GPA requirement.
So in addition to those requirements with your classes, the question we always get is, what else can my student do to be competitive when it comes to college? So I'm going to briefly share a couple of options to help with that, but also options that are helpful just in the process for students to do a little bit of the college and career exploration. These are 2 key pieces, I think, in figuring out what your student wants to do when they leave Branham, is really taking the time to do that research. Now is a great time to start. So First, we do have an opportunity that's available for juniors and seniors. So something that you can be thinking about this year for next year is SVCTE, so Silicon Valley Career Education. So as you saw, part of our graduation requirements is a CTE course, unless you've completed those 2 years in visual and performing arts. But this is an opportunity to actually take some classes on a separate campus. They do have their own campus over off of Hillsdale, and it's very much hands-on. This is an opportunity for students to really get a sense of the environment in certain careers, and to just get some of that entry-level help to do some of that research and see if it's something that does fit for them and their interests. Many of the courses offered through SVCTE are A through G approved. So these are helpful classes for students on any pathway. So I know for a long time, everybody thought that SVCTE was only for our kids who weren't 4-year bound. That is just not the case. There are great opportunities for any student who's looking to do a little more hands-on learning. There you have a vet science class. So if you have a student who wants to be a vet one day, it's a really great opportunity to start that process and to learn a little bit more. So SVCTE, there is an application process. We'll be sharing more of that information in January, but this is a great thing to think about now. Dual enrollment is another opportunity that is currently available for our sophomore, junior, and senior students. I just sent out the information for the application process on Monday morning. It is open. This is a really great opportunity for students to not only get college credit, to potentially, take out at least one college class they'll have to take in the future, which will save them time and you money. But this is also an opportunity to help your students stand out on future college applications because they're challenging themselves, taking this college level class, which also will be reflected on their high school transcripts. That's the really awesome perk with dual enrollment, is that your students are able to get high school and college credit. Looks great on college applications, and it really allows your student to really push themselves. And with dual enrollment, they do not have to leave the Branham campus. It makes it a lot easier for you. Don't have to worry about transportation, which I should have mentioned for SVCTE because it is on another campus. Free transportation is provided for all students who need it. So these are two very, very awesome, I think, opportunities for students. If you or your students have questions, they can definitely contact me. Happy to give you any information, ask any of those questions you have.
And now it's my turn. As we talk about college, and I know that that's starting to be a topic of conversation in many of your households, I don't want you to lose sight of some of the important things that colleges give, not just the academic portion. And colleges aren't looking for students who are just strictly 4-point somethings. They want people who are well-rounded. Now, they don't want a laundry list of clubs, so this is not the time to send your student to sign up for every club under the sun, and we have over 80 clubs at Branham. But what they're looking for is for your student to have picked 1 or 2 clubs of interest or activities of interest, and then work their way in them. Right now, we all are in the process of writing letters of recommendation for our seniors. And I'm enjoying hearing the stories from our seniors that talk about, well, I joined the club, I was a member. Then I really started getting involved, and so they gave me one particular event to be in charge of. And then I liked that, and I felt like I could really lead people. And so now I'm the secretary or the treasurer or the president. Or other students who have shared in their surveys with us that they have founded a club or co-founded a club, and that's of interest. So that's the type of work and activity that a lot of the college people are looking for. Those admissions people are looking for folks who are well-rounded, can academically be sound, but also are interested in giving to their high school community as well as the community in which they live. And clubs, as I said, we have over 80-something clubs at Branham. But if your student can't find one of any interest, they are certainly welcome to start a club of their own. Of course, they'd have to look and see what the rules are. You need a faculty advisor, but that's it. You know, Mr. Lee Burn shared that he is working mostly with freshmen this year. And I'm listening to him interview freshmen. And he asked one of the questions of, have you joined any clubs? What are your interests? Because at that point, we need to plant the seed of getting involved in your school community, as well as hopefully they're involved in some form or fashion in the community of which they live, either be it San Jose, Campbell, Saratoga, Santa Clara. Many of our students come from all of those places. And so they really want to see that. And so that's a way to get involved and interested. Mr. Lee Burn.
Sorry, I was muted. So there are some post-secondary options that are good for your students. And we were just in classes talking about this with juniors. Military is a good option for students that aren't sure what they want to do. It's a way to see the world, learn new skills, and get free schooling and a lot of benefits from the military route. Trade schools, another option. I don't know if any of you saw the 60-minute thing about Seattle plumber who couldn't find anybody to work, and he was hiring people at $150,000 a year to start as a plumber. So trade schools are a positive option. What we're telling the students though, be wise, make sure you look up the trade school, make sure it's accredited and not one that's just there to be taking your money, and look at that. Community college are great options for students at this point in time. All the community colleges in California have what are called the California Promise, and which means they can earn or they can get community college for 1 year for free, including their books and extra money to put in their gas tanks to get to and from school for the year. So it is a great option. Not only do the community college have transfer programs to the UCs and CSUs where they can get a guaranteed transfer if they meet the requirements to those schools, they also have what are called certificate programs. So if your student's very interested in becoming a mechanic or working with automobiles, De Anza has a very good program, and they could go get certificates in automobile maintenance stuff rather than going to a trade school and spending the exorbitant amount of price that often trade schools cost. And so the community colleges are a great option. California State Universities, there's 23 campuses going all the way from Humboldt down to San Diego, and everywhere in between, from Fresno in the valley out to the coast of Monterey Bay. And so there are a campus that probably fits everyone. As you saw when Ms. Morella was talking, it takes at least a 2.0 GPA to get into a CSU. But most of those colleges our requirements are above 3.0. Honestly, there's some times that you can get in, but your student needs to be on top of their stuff. University of California, there's 9 UCs, really 10, but one only does upper division. So 9 UCs your students could go to. The UCs are not taking SAT scores or ATC scores. They're not looking at them. They are ACT, SAT blind. And they're looking though for students that were well-rounded. The conversation about your students being involved in clubs and leading clubs and showing leadership. Also, if they've gone through some adversity, how have they handled that and how have they taken that on. So make sure that your student does that resume, keeps track of all those activities and things that they're doing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. Private schools, anywhere from Santa Clara to Stanford, to the University of San Francisco, yay Dons, all play that part. And they are their variety of, they vary greatly on their entrance requirements. So you and your students are going to have to research those private colleges individually to see exactly what they want. And then out of state private colleges also vary greatly in what they want. So make sure you check those out. And I would like to point out with the out of state public schools, there is a program where the Western California are in an alliance, and a lot of the public schools will let you get in-state tuition or close to in-state tuition. It's a little higher, but it is a lot cheaper than paying out-of-state tuition for that. So that's another thing to look at. Naviance. So your student can do college searches, career searches, and resume searches on Naviance. They should be going into Naviance now, and there is under their About Me in the upper right-hand corner, there is they can find the resume and they can start filling out that resume right then and there. Then they can do a thing called Super College Match, where they can start looking for colleges based upon location in the United States, specific states, whether it's a large school or a small school, whether what their major is, how much it costs, whether they have sports, all of those criteria you can break down the colleges and take a look at. They can also search individual careers. In the About Me section, there's also a survey section where the students can take exploratory career surveys to get an idea of what characteristics they have and what jobs fit those characteristics. So that's very important. You also can receive access to Naviance if you would like your own login to Naviance. So if you would like that, I encourage you to email me at vliebern@cuhsd.org. Give me your student's name and that you would like Naviance login information, and I will email it to you within 48 hours. Thank you.
Okay, so now let's talk about the website that I mentioned that will have this presentation, that will have the student success resource site with the wheel on, test taking strategies, study skills, etc. And so the tiny URL is VHS Success. It will look like this. A student will first see how to find their counselor, because this year we shifted or, have a specific focus. And I know some students may not have the same counselor they did previously. And so they can find out how to find that on that guide. They will also find all of our office hours, appointment links, how to make an appointment with us, etc. And then if you look on the left side, they will also find resources on testing, career exploration, college and career info, etc. And so this is a really good source of information, not just for the tools that we talked about, but really if a student is just curious, maybe wants to get ahead, etc., they will find all of that good stuff on this website in one specific place that is easy to find. We also have a bunch of posters throughout school. Teachers should have them somewhere in their classroom with 2 QR codes. One of them will lead them to this site, and the other one will lead them to our mental health site that has, it looks very much like this, but it's focusing only on mental health. So, strategies and resources on a variety of mental health issues like anxiety, depression, etc. There's a virtual calming room. They will also find the counselors who focus on that, because yes, we can help with mental health, but our main focus is academic counseling rather than mental health counseling. For that, we have a social worker and then 2 counselors, one from CASI and one from Uplift, 2 organizations who have counselors that only focus on mental health. And so that is a very similar URL address, except that it says BHS Wellness, not BHS Success. Okay, thank you.
So very similar to what Ms. Miguel just kind of went over, we did create a mental health and wellness website with the help of our school social worker, Mr. Nguyen. And so we really wanted to make sure, especially for the students coming out of the pandemic and just how difficult everything had been for the last year and a half through distance learning, we wanted to make sure that they had specific kind of resources to help them self-soothe, but also, have supports within the wellness center. Like she had mentioned, we have our school social worker and other counselors through Uplift and other programs that Mr. Nguyen has brought in. But one of the things that I really like is our virtual calming room. So if students are having a really bad day and just don't really want to talk to anybody, but just need some space to kind of de-stress, we did create that virtual calming room. And in there's like coloring pages and journal activities, different things that they can look at to see kind of what fits for them and what would help them kind of release that stress and anxiety that they may be feeling in that moment. As well, we've also put together some outreach activities. So every Friday in their outreach class, the teachers should be hopefully going through, it's about 5 minutes of just different kind of topics for the students. That kind of, it's a theme for the month. So the one moving forward for November will be kind of on time management, setting skills, procrastination. And so there's activities in there for every Friday for your students. And so they can be finding those as well on this website, along with just different pages that are very specific. So having an anxiety and stress management page or a grief and loss page. And on those pages, there are specific resources that your students can go to just find kind of additional information about that area, or also just finding additional support if they are struggling with some of those different issues.
And so here we are at our question and answer time, although I do believe many of you have been asking questions throughout this presentation. But here is our contact information for you to get in touch with us by email if you should have any questions. There are a couple of things that I'm going to bring up that we didn't, and then we'll just continue to wait a little bit for more questions and we can answer them. In full disclosure, I'm not looking at the questions because I'm afraid if I do that I'm going to lose the PowerPoint presentation because I'm so savvy with technology. So I haven't been doing that, so I really don't know what the questions are. I'm just going to wing it a little bit. But one of the things
can I answer a question that's in here?
Sure, please do.
Okay, so there's a question about middle college. If your student's interested in middle college, they should see their counselor and talk to their counselor about the middle college process. But there will be a middle college night in the second semester to give information to students and start the application process for that program. And that will happen second semester sometime around February or March.
One of the suggestions also is to discuss the PSAT. Before COVID, most of the time the PSAT was offered for sophomores in the fall. Because of what has happened with COVID, we weren't able to do that. But we are going to be offering for sophomores the PSAT in the spring. Not exactly sure of the date, and you don't have to worry about your student registering because all sophomores will be taking it. But it'll be probably March, but we're not exactly sure of the date on that.
Again, there will be an opportunity later for students to attend an info session to learn more about middle college, but it is a very different program than taking a concurrent enrollment or dual enrollment class, as the students will be taking all of their classes on the West Valley campus. So it is very different. It can be better for some students. It might not be better for others. So definitely something, great opportunity to go to the info sessions to get more information to figure out if it is the right kind of option for you and your student.
I'm going to ask, keep getting a signal that Amy has raised her hand, but I don't know how to address that. So Amy, if you could possibly put your question in Q&A, we'd be happy to answer it for you. Well, it seems like our questions are winding down. So, without any further ado, I'm going to thank you so much for joining us. Please, for your friends who weren't able to join, let them know again that this particular presentation will be posted on the website. Give us a couple of days and it should be up there. We will, as Ms. Morella said, we will be meeting with your student in the spring to look at their schedules for next year. Some of us will be meeting with some of your students who are not working to potential prior to that to help encourage them to try to do better. We are all very aware that the last year and a half has been dreadful for most students, and I'm going to say most staff. So we all are doing the best we can at transitioning back in, and some of us are moving at a little slower pace than others. So what we try to do is just encourage your student, but this is a real team effort. So we really need you at home also encouraging, setting boundaries, rules around things so that they can be more successful. And with that, again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight.